size of these cups. Absolute cereal bowls.
What?
Are you excited to watch me play today?
I am excited to watch you play.
It's been a while, and I've actually been winning. So if I lose today, it's all your fault.
No pressure.
It's a really good cappuccino, actually. Even though it is the size of your head. It's absolutely massive. Any good?
I can't even get the coffee.
Well, it was more of a mustache for a minute there. 30 minutes later, Ella has not finished the coffee.
I'm just so small and it's just so big.
It is massive. Look at it. Never ending. So guys, back to business. Welcome back to another episode. This week I'm playing a 25k in Sheffield. And I've started the week off strong with a win against a very tough opponent. And the match lasted nearly 2 hours, so it was a pretty physical one. As you guys may know, I've been playing a lot of UTRs recently. I've had a lot of matches and a lot of wins. But a lot of those matches have been outdoors or on the clay. Very different conditions to what I'm playing this week. Rapid, low bouncing indoor hard courts. A surface that I've actually had some of the biggest wins of my career on. But this time around, I was actually finding it really difficult to adapt to. Even though I won my first match, it felt a little bit scrappy, and it felt like I needed to be a little bit more aggressive, take a little bit more time away, maybe hit through the ball a little bit more as well. I was still playing with a lot of height and shape that was really successful on the outdoor hard courts and the clay. So basically, my game needed to adapt. So in this practice session before round 2 of qualifying, I was just shortening my backswing slightly on the ground strokes, trying to stick to the baseline a little bit more and play through the ball a little bit more, especially on my forehand. Because from previous experience, I knew this was the most effective play for me on this surface. And my opponent today in round 2 of qualifying is a lefty, so I made sure that I was hitting a lot of backhands in the cross court. Those lefties love a single hander. Before the match, I pick up my racket from the stringer. I like to use a brand new set of strings for every match and also a brand new grip. For me, this is worth the investment. It means that every time I start the match, I've got a reliable tension and there's also less chance of it breaking. And I love the feeling of a new grip. So my opponent in the second round of qualifying was Luke Hooper, fellow Brit and very tricky lefty. This is the first time that I've played my opponent, so I don't know a huge amount about him, but I know that he can be a very tough player. So at the start of this match, I set out to play aggressive. I tried to take the ball on. Tennis is often about getting the first strike in, and that becomes a lot more obvious when you start to play indoors. When I was playing a lot of the UTRs on the clay and the outdoor hard, I had so much time to build my way into the rallies, and this just wasn't the case here. Even when I had more time, the ball was shooting through, low and fast. So I got broken in the first game of the match. I played a few loose points, gave away a few cheap errors, and then had a few chances to break back on my opponent's serve. And I just went a little bit tentative, a little bit passive. I was choosing to slice a lot of the returns to almost just make my opponent play, but if you do this too much, it makes them feel pretty comfortable, and it doesn't really do any damage. So I still had that returning position as if I was playing outdoors. And because I was getting some chances to break, and the games were actually pretty tight, I didn't want to change anything just yet in case I started missing returns or didn't make him play at the right moment. So I had the chance to break back. I really wanted to hit through these returns and be a little bit more aggressive, but I was just struggling to make myself do it. So I was just going to try and work with what I had. If I had to chip the returns to make more, then that's what I'd have to do and then figure it out once I got into the rally. Although this was winning me a few games and getting me the break back, I knew that my level was going to have to increase. So on this second service game, I said to myself that I'm going to have to go after my forehand a little bit more. Take it earlier, take it on. Almost sending my opponent a message saying that anything that dropped short or hung in the air, I was going to put away. I was playing pretty well in parts and I was trying to play the right way, but I was just giving away a few too many errors at the wrong times. My opponent was quick and he was solid, so he was getting a lot of balls back. And then halfway through the first set, he really started to let his forehand go. So I was starting to feel very under pressure. I knew that I had to raise my level and I didn't have long to do it. I wasn't playing particularly well from the baseline, not as well as I normally do, so I was going to have to change things up. I was going to have to try and move forward whenever I could and take the ball out the air, especially on my own serve. And this would also change the rhythm of the game. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get any momentum back in this first set, and my opponent started to pull out some very good shots from very difficult positions on the court. In this second set, after being a breakdown, I said to myself that I was going to have to go after it more off the ground, especially returning my opponent's serve. He was becoming way too comfortable when I was chipping the ball, so I was going to have to try and put him under more pressure. And by this stage, you can tell that he had a lot of confidence. He'd really started to go after his forehand, and he wasn't missing many. So, I was a set and a breakdown. At this stage, I had the thought to myself that the third set is a super tiebreak. Basically, a tiebreak to 10. If I could just hang in there and try and figure things out, I was actually closer to winning the match at this stage than when I started. So if I could get some momentum back and get back into this second set, the third set is only a 10-point tiebreak. And apart from that thought, winning this match means that you qualify for main draw. That's where all the money is, and more importantly, that's where you get the points. So there's no point whatsoever of giving up at this stage. It's all worth fighting for. By this stage in the match, the level from me and my opponent had risen significantly. I was feeling a lot more confident, taking more balls on the baseline, taking it earlier. This was how I was wanting to play from the start. But I was afraid that I'd found my level a little bit too late. And by this stage, my opponent had held on to the break for the whole of the second set, which is actually a lot harder to do than it looks. And now he was serving for the match. And I knew that he wasn't going to give anything away. He's a solid player, good competitor. So if I was going to get a break, I was going to have to earn it. I was trying to make him play as much as possible, but just dropped it a little bit too short. To be honest, after this match, I was really gutted. Not just because I lost and I missed out on the chance to earn more points or even more money. It was more how I played. I almost didn't go out to win that match. It was more not lose. Even though I played well in parts and I did some things right, overall the mindset was wrong and it needed to shift. I almost felt like, what's the point in putting in all these hard hours of training and traveling just to go out there and approach a match, trying not to lose? It's all about getting out there and trying to win. And after the match, I was so gone that I even stopped filming content. I was ready to give up on this week and not even make a video. After the match, I got straight back onto the practice court and just hit the ball so hard, partly out of trying to be more aggressive and partly out of frustration. And then I got some news that might just turn my week around. A few players had pulled out from the main draw, which meant there were a few lucky loser spots up for grabs, which basically means if you lose in qualies and people pull out of the main draw, then you can be thrown a lifeline and you can be re-entered into the draw to fill up the available spots. So obviously this isn't the way that I wanted to enter the main draw. I wanted to qualify and really earn it, but sometimes you do get lucky. And this was another chance, not just to go out there and win a match, get an ATP point, or even earn more money, but to go out and play my game, stick to everything that I'd been doing in practice, and really take the ball on. And that's what I was going to do. My opponent in the first round main draw was Louis Maxted. He'd had a very accomplished American college career playing at TCU. He was an NCAA doubles champion, and he'd also had Grand Slam experience playing at Wimbledon. And recently, he'd been mopping up futures in Monastir, winning an M15 and an M25. So this was going to be a very tough match and a perfect chance to test my game. After my performance in the second round of qualifying, my goals for this match were purely process-based. Taking the ball early, hitting the ball big, and coming forward whenever possible. My opponent moved extremely well, defended out the corners with ease, so I was going to have to play very well to get him off balance. And on top of that, he was serving spots and following it up with a strong third ball, often on the forehand side. I wasn't going to get anywhere chipping the returns back in this match. I was going to have to go after it. I was a breakdown in the first set, but I was happy with the way that I was approaching it. I felt far more in control of the rallies than I had been the previous day. It was just going to be about keeping my errors down and making sure that I wasn't going for anything that was stupid or trying to force a winner out of nowhere. Something that actually really helped my serve out in this match was telling myself that I was going to serve and volley on every serve. Obviously, I wasn't going to do that all the time, but it really helped to get my body weight into the court and really helped me to commit to the serve without forcing it. And it also meant that I was ready to take on the short balls or even take on volleys from balls that were just hanging in the air. And straight away, this was a completely different performance to the match that I'd played the previous day. I felt completely different. And even though I was down in the score, this felt like the natural way for me to play. And you can see how good my opponent's serve was. Very accurate, changed it up well, and it was rare that he missed them. So I wasn't getting many looks at a second serve. But to be honest, neither was he. Because I'd slightly adjusted the mindset behind my serve, today it was far more of a weapon. On the second serve return, I was really trying to take the ball inside the baseline, taking it on the rise before it got up high on my backhand side, and taking a lot of time away from my opponent. It meant that I didn't have to hit the ball as hard and I didn't have to be as accurate. Sometimes it feels risky taking the ball inside the baseline and taking it on, but at this level, it's actually more risky to let your opponent play. Sometimes you might feel like you're making your opponent play more balls, but you have to try and do something with it. Because if you don't, eventually, they're just going to put the ball past you. And I had a good chance there to get a break back. At 30 all, I just missed the return, pulled it slightly wide, and my opponent ended up holding. Playing this way and looking to be aggressive really boosted my confidence. And more importantly, I was enjoying playing like this. This really felt like the way that I should play. At times in the match, I was getting pretty nervous. You know, it wasn't like I was just going out and swinging, and I definitely wasn't playing freely. There were still nerves, but at each time when I felt nervous, I was almost just forcing myself to play this way and take the ball on because I knew that if I didn't, then I'd just get crushed. And I was also trying to put it in perspective that if I didn't carry on playing like this, then I wouldn't just have no chance of winning this match, but matches in the future at this level. So it was a really good time just to stick to it and see how far it could get me. After a really solid hold at 5-3, my goal at 5-4 was to make my opponent play as many balls as possible. This is the time where they're probably feeling the most pressure, so I was going to take a little bit off my returns and focus on making him play, which was hard because he played 2 fantastic points at the start of the game and just didn't give me a chance to do that. The first 2 points of any game are so important. They really set the tone and they can help you put a lot of pressure on. So right now, I was under pressure to come up with something. And I had 2 second serves in a row, so I was really going to try and take control of the point. It's a sign of a real quality player being able to bring out big serves, big plays in the tight moments. And this was something that my opponent was very good at doing. Whenever I got a chance, 30 alls or even deuces, it was very hard to get in control of the point. So I lost the first set, and obviously nobody's happy about losing a set, but I was happy with the way that I was playing, so I was just going to do my best to try and stick to that as much as possible. I feel like at some point, if I carried on playing at this level, then there would be a shift in the momentum. And also at this stage, I'd pretty much fully relaxed. I was really feeling like I had everything to gain and nothing to lose. And that just really helped me to go after it a little bit more and stick to this really aggressive game style. So I had a chance here early on in the second set. I was up 15-30 and it felt like I'd been pressing the whole time. So I decided to change things up a bit, use my slice and try and force my opponent into some tricky situations. I thought that tactically this would be a great time to use a change-up, maybe giving my opponent less pace, make him do something. And then at 30-40, I got a chance, so I hit through the second serve, and to be honest, it was an uncharacteristic error from my opponent. You don't really see him miss many of those. And from there, I could really feel like the momentum now was on my side. The key now was to really lock in and make sure that I stuck to playing this aggressive style, taking the ball on, and just being relentless with it. And not worrying too much about missing or what happens if I miss. Just stick to the process and go after it. So I was up 4-2, I was serving well, I was literally just focused on hitting my spots and moving forward after the serve, trying not to think about the score or the opportunities, just trying to lock in on my game. And it was really working, but I could feel the pressure coming from my opponent's side. He was really starting to roll through his service games. I was barely getting any chances to play, apart from maybe 1 or 2 points. To be honest, at deuce, it did cross my mind that this might be a chance to win the set, and I got a little bit passive, a little bit pushy, and you can just see that that's not going to do anything to my opponent. And at his advantage, I'm not quite sure what that was, but just got in the way of the ball. And at 5-4, had the chance to serve for the set. Not going to lie, I was pretty nervous, but I wanted to work through it. So obviously after the second set, I was pretty pumped with my level, and more pumped that I'd actually been able to do it in a real pressure situation, serving for the second set. Now, my goal was to try and stick to that in the third set. And it wasn't easy because my opponent had upped his level and the intensity, which really set the tone for the third set. And I just missed a few opportunities in that first game to make him play and set the tone for myself in this third set. But I picked up where I left off in the second set and started serving very well in the start of the third. Really letting go and getting after it and hitting my spots. On the return games, I really wanted to keep that level of aggression and keep going after it, especially on my opponent's second serve. I wanted to keep that pressure up that I'd put on in the second set. And it started off great. I was feeling good, confident, and after missing a few returns, I then started to make a few, and I was always looking to press when we got into a rally. Unfortunately, I was just making a few too many unforced errors, way more than I had been in the second set. And this is where things just slightly started to unravel. I missed a pretty easy put away at 40-30 to win the game, and then things got a little bit tricky on my own service game. I didn't really get tight. It was more trying to force things and just not really taking care of the ball when I had the opportunity to put it away. And then from that break, my opponent sensed the change in momentum and he just locked in. He just didn't give me anything. It felt like I went from 2-1 to 4-1 in the space of about 10 seconds. And even though I was trying my best to get back in the match, I was fighting, it was just very difficult. I wasn't getting loads of chances, and I was finding it hard to get a real comfortable hold on my own serve. At this stage, I wasn't getting many free points, and I was really having to work. By this stage, my opponent was putting so many returns in the court, and I was just starting to force things slightly. But to be honest, I'd rather play like this than go passive and try and rally. I'd much rather go after it. So I ended up losing the match 6-1 in the third set. Full credit to my opponent, he's a very high quality player, playing some very good tennis at the minute. Obviously, I was gutted to lose that match, but I feel like there's so many positives to pull from that performance. Of course, a lot to learn from, but I honestly feel like that's one of the best matches I've played all year. As ever, massive thank you for watching, guys. Join me next time where I'm heading to Glasgow for another M25 Futures event.